Hello, this is a video about Beltane, particularly Beltane 2020, when the whole world is in a bit of a void between one way of living and another, and we haven't yet birthed that new way of being into reality. There's a lot of uncertainty about what that's going to look like. So I want to talk a bit about Beltane, this ancient Celtic festival and tradition that may well predate Celtic times, and explain a little about how it relates to what we're experiencing right now. So Beltane means goodly fire. It's one of the 5 festivals of the 8 festivals that make up the solar part of the wheel of the year, the medicine wheel of the year. You may be familiar with the solstices and the equinoxes. So we have 2, the winter solstice, the summer solstice, and we have the spring equinox and the autumn equinox. But we also have what we call cross-quarter festivals in between each of those. And Beltane is the festival between the spring equinox and the summer solstice. It's one of my favourite festivals. It celebrates the most potent and fertile time of the year. So it's a great time for really manifesting the dreams and the visions that we have coming into reality. It's a time of the masculine and the feminine coming together to create new life. It's celebrated traditionally around May the 1st. This is where a lot of May Day traditions come from, like the maypole, which is a representation of weaving together the feminine and the masculine into this one potent point of manifestation. It would traditionally have been celebrated around the last full moon in April, closest to May the 1st. And this energy between that full moon and summer solstice is really rich and a really potent, fertile time of year for us to really nurture the seeds within ourselves about what we want our lives to look like, about what we're creating within our own lives and what we're creating within the world, what new paradigm we're birthing into reality. So this is a time of really honouring those polarities and valuing those polarities as well. We can get really fixed in one view or another. You know, we're either scientific or we're spiritual, or we're natural or we're material, for example, or we're religious or we're non-religious. And we can get really fixed in those places. As the earth evolves through these cycles, so do we. And if we get stuck in one spot, it can really stagnate us and prevent us from being in a place of harmony with one another and with the planet. So I want to talk about those polarities a little bit. So we have the feminine and the masculine. We have night and day, dark and night. We have receptivity and giving. We have spirituality and science. We have nature and we have the material. We have the intuitive and we have the rational. So as you can see by looking at those 2 polarities and different aspects, all of that is really valuable. And when we get stuck too much in one and disregard the other, we're really limiting our life potential and the potential of what can be manifest on earth. So whatever your faith, belief system, or non-belief system, this is something that can really help to centre, to balance and bring more harmony into your life. And it's about having a reverence for the earth, which really I can't imagine anyone on this planet who can't have value for and respect for the planet that they live on. So to have gratitude for the food, the nurture, the shelter that Mother Earth provides us with is something that really is inherent within all of us. this is a fire festival, and traditionally it would have been a time when fires were built and people were blessed by jumping over the fire. Couples would jump over the fire after a hand fasting ceremony, which still goes on today, and this would bless their relationship with fertility and love and abundance. Also traditionally, farmers would have driven their cattle through the smoke of the fire to bless them, to rid them of illness, and to bless the fertility of the animals throughout that year as well. So the tradition of the May tree speaks of the hawthorn tree. And the hawthorn tree was a very sacred tree in ancient times, and of course still is today. And this is known to some as the gateway to the fairy kingdom. And whatever your belief system is, it's still something that can be celebrated as a manifestation of nature. So the hawthorn tree would have traditionally also been adorned with rags or ribbons as blessings and prayers of thanks to the nature spirits and to the fae. This was a time of year when the stag and the deer came together, also represented by the wild man of the woods, Herne, the god, and the goddess, the maiden of the woods, coming together to bring about new life, also represented as the green man and the May Queen. And when these two energies come together, this is symbolic of the great cycle of life. And in this coming together comes great unity, harmony, and transformation. So as we realise more and more in today's modern culture how the old ways of living, and when I say old I mean relatively new in comparison to the cycle of human life, but the industrial growth economy ways of carbon dependent living, we become aware that this is something we can no longer do and sustain for not only generations ahead but the generations that are on the planet now. This can bring up a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear, a lot of denial and challenges within a lot of us, because we've become so familiar with those ways of living. And we really want to look at how we can create new ways of living, drawing on philosophy and principles like permaculture, social justice, restorative justice. So as we look at these two polarities, the old paradigm and the new paradigm, traditional medicine and conventional medicine, we look at ways in which we can bring these together to create a new way of being. This was spoken about, this age and time that we're in now has been spoken about in many, many cultures, in prophecies throughout the world. The Mayans in particular spoke about these ages of evolution, and that at this time now, as in astrology it's reflected as moving into the time of the age of Aquarius, we're at the beginning of the age of Aquarius, and in Indian culture, the Yugas, and First Nation cultures, the Rainbow Warriors, there's so many prophecies, and I'm going to make another video around the Rainbow Warriors because I think that is so amazing that symbology is coming through us all at the moment in our households. It's in people's windows as a way of sharing love and gratitude and appreciation. I'm going to share about this really ancient prophecy of the coming of the Rainbow Warriors in a future video. But for now, the Mayan culture speak about these ages of evolution, and they spoke about the third age, which was well before the birth of formal religion and the Industrial Revolution and all of these things. And this was the feminine age, when we all lived in communion with nature. We lived in community. We valued our interdependence with one another. It was a time of being very connected to nature, spirituality, intuition, creativity, love and receptivity. And then we were in the masculine age, which was which we're just coming to the end of now really, which was the individual, the material, the scientific, the technological, the practical, the rational. Now obviously you can see the value within each of those ages, and as we come into the fifth age that we are now, and actually that was represented in the Mayan calendar of 2012 being the beginning of that shift and the ending of an old cycle, of an old way of being. But things don't happen instantaneously, you know, it's like a dimmer switch, it's a very gradual process. So as we move into the fifth age, what that means is the balancing of the two polarities, the feminine and the masculine coming together, the spiritual and the scientific coming together, the intuitive and the rational coming together, the material and the natural coming together. And we're seeing this, we're witnessing more and more of this, particularly around spirituality and science, how these two polarities are really bridging now, and we're just realizing that these different languages are explaining lots of the same things about how energy doesn't die and exists within everything. It's just using different languages, and it's about using a language that suits you and not pushing yourself into a place that isn't right for you, but challenging your comfort zone, because it's when we move out of our comfort zone that the most growth and evolution occurs. Looking at it scientifically, evolution tends to occur under stress. If you look at the analogy of the caterpillar and the butterfly, the caterpillar weaves this cocoon around itself, very symbolic of where we are now, in isolation, many of us, and in lockdown. So this cocoon, this darkness that it weaves itself into, it allows itself to go right into that darkness, and that's a representation of us really facing our own shadow and accepting our whole range of emotions, the grief, the fear, the anxiety, and those parts of ourselves that we maybe suppress, deny, or hide from people, or even from ourselves. And when the caterpillar is in its cocoon, it actually spews acid onto itself to physically melt down. So it goes through this breakdown, this meltdown process, before it can actually evolve into something far more advanced, something that can fly, something that has a really beautiful expression in the world. And I think that analogy, although it's quite cliche, is a fantastic symbol of what we're experiencing right now. So at this really fertile, verdant, juicy time of year, traditionally it would have been a celebration of sexuality, sensuality, a lot of these things that that have become quite taboo in the masculine age, and things that are absolutely part of all of our lives. We wouldn't exist if it wasn't for sexuality. This is part of procreation. It's a beautiful part of expression and bonding of love with one another. It doesn't mean that you have to be with somebody to express and celebrate these energies. We can see it all around us in nature, new life being born, creation at work. It's a time for really reflecting and reviewing on what it is within you that you're embracing. So those parts of yourself that are maybe challenging to embrace, and those parts that you want to evolve, those parts that you want to grow. So focusing as well on what your dreams, your wishes and your ambitions are for yourself, for your loved ones, and for the world itself. The more of us that are energizing the good dream into reality, the sooner it's going to come into being. So really feel into what your sense of purpose, meaning and connection is, where you get that in your life, where you feel a sense of purpose, where you feel a sense of meaning and connection. And feel into how we can balance those polarities of the material and the natural, of the old way of living and a new way of living, so that we can birth into reality the most fantastic, harmonious world for us all to live in. There is enough for everybody. The amount of people who are starving in the world is balanced by the amount of waste that we have in the world. Everything is disproportionate. So let's focus on what we want to see across the world, within our immediate communities and on the planet as a whole. So how can you celebrate Beltane apart from focusing on that which you want to manifest, maybe writing that down? As I said, Beltane is a fire festival. So if you have the ability to build a fire in your garden safely, or if you have a fireplace in your home, a natural fire in your home, it's great to write down that which you're transforming and that which you're manifesting and put it into the fire and send those prayers up with the smoke. Other ways that you can celebrate this time of year is to wear green, to connect with the energy of the spring and show your allegiance with Mother Earth and the elementals. You can get out into nature if that's possible for you. Get out into nature, spend some time, sit with a tree, preferably a hawthorn. This time of year, as I said before, the May tree is the hawthorn tree. So this is a great tree to connect with at this time of year, to sit with, to meditate with, to feel and even speak to. So you can ask that tree with permission to spend some time with it. You can ask if there's any specific questions that you have burning, any guidance, and use that as a way of tapping into your intuition and your higher states of consciousness. Traditionally, I may have mentioned that ribbons and rags would have been hung from the branches of the hawthorn as a celebration and as a gift of thanks to the nature spirits and to the caretakers of the earth, the fairy kingdom. If you do attach ribbons or rags to any tree, please ensure that you do it in a way in which it can move as the branch grows, so that you're not strangling the branch of the tree. To visit sacred springs and wells if you have the capacity to do that locally to you. To sing beautiful music to Mother Nature, to dance, to celebrate your sensuality, to make love with your partner, and just to celebrate the fertility and abundance of life, to focus on the projects that you want to bring fertility to. So it's not about just bringing fertility to a womb to birth an actual baby. It's about bringing fertility to our ideas, our dreams and our projects. Nature. If you can't get out into nature, then take some time to connect with nature from home. Go on a guided meditation, a guided journey, to connect with the elements that way, to connect with nature that way. You could build a little shrine at home using elements from nature, aspects of nature, like shells, rocks, plants, flowers, feathers, pine cones, anything at all that connects you with nature. So bring that into your home and create your own little shrine or little sacred nature table. And this is a great thing to share with children. If you do have the opportunity to get out and go for a walk, you can collect gifts from nature. But I would always say, in respect of nature and the elements, always ask if it's okay to take it, and always give thanks. Other things you can do is give offerings to nature. So traditionally, oats, honey and bread would be used as an offering to nature, and these are nice things to leave, particularly at this time of year around the hawthorn tree. But anywhere at all that feels right to you, and anything that's natural that you can leave as an offering. So I hope that gives you some ideas. And, you know, these are just some of ideas that I'm sharing with you. A resource that I can recommend is a book called Sacred Celebrations by Glennie Kindred. She is fantastic, and this book takes you through all of the festivals of the year in the solar wheel of the year, and giving you, letting you know about the trees and the plants of that time of year. The plants, as I mentioned. This book also talks about the moon cycles and how you can connect more with the cycles of the moon. As human beings, we are part of nature, and therefore we in ourselves are cyclical. So the more that we can connect with the cycles of nature, the more that we can use that as a guide and an ally in our own life and to support the cycles that we go through. I found that connecting with these cycles really supports us, particularly with seasonal conditions like seasonal affective disorder, when we can really embrace the gifts of winter and the darker months. This can really help us with things like seasonal affective disorder. But for now, we're at the peak of spring and the beginning of summer. So let's enjoy that, embrace that, connect with Mother Nature and manifest your dreams into reality. Blessed be all your dreams, and I wish you a beautiful Beltane. Signing off with love.